Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Wednesday afternoon in the capital city of Kansas on the sports voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color streaming on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and Facebook page, WIBW News. Greetings and salutations. Great to be with you. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, hanging out with you for the next 2 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. We are once again truncated, preempted by some basketball. Tonight, it's K-State men's basketball as they make the long trek to Orlando to take on the Knights of UCF. Pre-game coverage starting at 5 o'clock ahead of tonight's 6 o'clock tip-off. So we are done an hour early today. So we're hanging out with you for the next 2 hours, and it truly is. It's a long way to go and a short time to get there. We got to pack 3 hours of sports talk into 2 hours here today. We appreciate you being with us here on 580 Sports Talk. Lots of Chiefs stuff to get to today. The reports of the demise of Trey Smith's Chiefs career may have been exaggerated. It sure sounds like not only are the Chiefs more of the mind that they can keep their starting right guard before he hits free agency, but in fact, it may have been the plan all along. That's what Brett Veach says. Nate Taylor of The Athletic doing the reporting on it today. And now I think the pendulum has really swung back into a position where the Chiefs are going to keep the Pro Bowl right guard this offseason, not him get to a point where he can test the waters in early March. We will talk about why that is the case and why ultimately I have come around on the idea, because like many of you, I've operated under the belief for the better part of, if not all of 2024, that it was going to be Trey Smith's final season as a Chief, that the contracts given to free agent guards prior to the 2024 season were going to price out an actually good top of the scale guard when he hit free agency, especially because this is, as we well know, not a great free agent class, but teams with money to spend are going to go spend it. You have to go spend your salary cap money somewhere. So there's a lot of money to burn for top of the scale free agents, even if it's not quite the same top of the scale as it's always been. And that would seem to include Trey Smith. So we've had this assumption for a long time. Trey Smith is going to wear another uniform next season. What if we're wrong? I think we might be wrong. I think it might be for the best. We'll talk about Trey Smith and what his future looks like, and maybe now more probable that that future is coming in Kansas City. Also discussing the strengths of this upcoming NFL draft and how it kind of lines up nicely with some of the things the Chiefs need to get out of the 2025 draft. Remember, Chiefs only have 6 draft picks, though they do have 4 in the top 100, which is not a bad place to be. But not a lot of those late day 2, day 3 draft picks, or I should say early day 3, late day 3 draft picks that the Chiefs have been able to really build with and find quality depth with. But you got to make sure, if that's the case, you get quality over quantity, and there is quality in this draft at positions that the Chiefs could really use. Also breaking for the Chiefs today, breaking news regarding the Chiefs, regarding all 32 teams. This year's NFLPA survey was released today. The Players Association survey of all 32 teams. Remember how poorly the Chiefs graded out last year? Remember how poorly Clark Hunt graded out last year? Well, the bad news for the Chiefs is, relative to the rest of the league, they're still pretty low on the scale in terms of player, I guess you'd call it, satisfaction. But I think that's more about the curve being skewed a little bit than it is about a franchise that is failing its players. And Clark Hunt got a much better grade this year. So he's got that going for him, which is nice. We'll break down the fun stuff from the NFLPA survey, including something very funny from the Falcons grades that I can't stop thinking and laughing about. So let's football today's show. We're going to talk some college hoops as well. There was something I kept wanting to get to on yesterday's show. We kept running out of time, and then ultimately we didn't have time to do it because high school basketball got rolling a little early last night. But if you were to ask the question at the end of every Big 12 season, which program is the best positioned for the next half decade in the league? Which program is in the best shape? The answer always is Kansas, or was Kansas. Is KU still the answer to that question? Are they the number one answer up on the Family Feud board on that question? I don't think they are. We'll talk about that, especially now that the Houston Cougars are all but confirmed as the two-time Big 12 champions. Also, we will preview K-State UCF. The news not great already for K-State. It does not sound like Coleman Hawkins is going to be able to go tonight. That would be 2 straight games missed for Hawkins. And we saw what it looked like on Sunday against Arizona State. Not particularly pretty. Although, just as much of that had to do with the ball not going in the basket. And that's not all attributable to Coleman Hawkins not playing. So if the ball goes in the basket tonight for K-State, they should have a chance. UCF's not particularly good. Whatever the arena's called, I think Addition Financial, something like that. Addition Financial Arena. Not the most intimidating place to go play. So still an opportunity for K-State to snap their 3-game losing streak tonight, but it does get harder without the services of Coleman Hawkins. We will talk some about that, and we'll get Tim Fitzgerald's thoughts as he joins us for Wildcat Wrap-Up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher at GoPowerCat.com, joins us for his trademark wit and K-State wisdom at the bottom of the hour in the 4 o'clock hour on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Plus, we'll play around One Gotta Go. We will crown our final weekly champion of February on What Is Wrong With You. Short month, February. We'll have monthly semifinals on tomorrow's show, and then we'll crown a February champion on Friday, the final day of February. Already almost to the end of February here in 2025. Your interactions with the program are invited and encouraged. Would love to hear from you on this Wednesday. You can send a text to 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. Would love to hear from you via text. Also, if you are watching the show on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, which, by the way, you should go and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not yet. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Really easy thing to do. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it moves us closer to the arm wrestling match of the century between Brendan and I when we get to 800 subscribers on the YouTube. But if you are watching on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk is the channel. There is a live chat that you can jump in, interact with your fellow listeners, and interact with your hosts. Greetings to both Marks, Mark H., Mark B., in today. Paul's also in on the chat as well. Look forward to seeing more from you guys and more of you guys as we go along on this Wednesday on 580 Sports Talk. The speculation when we heard that the NFL was going to, in fact, have a higher salary cap than expected for 2025 was that maybe, just maybe, in a best-case scenario, that would enable the Chiefs to make a more serious run at keeping their starting right guard, Pro Bowler, Trey Smith. That was the speculation from us lay people, people outside the Chiefs front office. But apparently Brett Veach was on the exact same wavelength. As Nate Taylor writes for The Athletic, the critical information in the memo regarding the salary cap led Brett Veach to make a consequential statement to the rest of his player personnel staff. Quote, that could put Trey back into play. Apparently the Chiefs were operating under the belief that the league's salary cap was going to be around $270 million. Quick aside, isn't that a wild thing that you start your planning for your offseason not actually knowing how much money you're going to have? Like, you can guess, and like what contracts are coming off the book. You've got a broad idea of how much flexibility you have under the salary cap and what that number is going to look like, then the league doesn't tell you. And then when they tell you, they don't really tell you because we still do not know what that final number is going to be for the 2025 NFL salary cap. Somewhere between $277.5 million and $281.5 million. Well, that's $10 million more a year than the Chiefs were under the impression that they were going to have. And that has, according to Taylor's writing in The Athletic today, raised their belief that they can get something done with Trey Smith. Something that Taylor calls in the article their biggest objective this spring. Now, I don't mean to get bogged down in semantics. I do it all the time, but I don't mean to. But the semantics of this are interesting. The idea that it's their biggest objective, but Brett Veach's response was not, this helps us with Trey, but this brings Trey back into play. So I do think that we, broadly, the royal we, were correct in the assumption that the Chiefs thought we're probably not going to be able to get it done with Trey Smith. We're probably going to get outbid. We're probably going to get priced out of that market just the way it is. We hate it, but that's life. We're going to make it, give it the old college try, but the expectation, it sounds like, was that Trey Smith was going to leave. And now that they know they've got more salary cap flexibility than they anticipated, well, now things have changed a little bit. This is also from the Nate Taylor article. The most prominent members of the Chiefs, Veach, club owner Clark Hunt, coach Andy Reid, and senior vice president of football operations Chris Shea, are expected to have another conversation with Smith's agents later this week with optimism that they can retain him. Smith is projected to command a 4-year, $86 million contract, including $52.5 million guaranteed, according to Pro Football Focus. The Chiefs could sign Smith to a 5-year deal with at least $50 million fully guaranteed, which would be the most ever for a guard. The team prefers a 5-year deal because it would be better to spread the money over those years while also projecting the league's salary cap to continue to increase. So a couple of thoughts on that number. First, 4 years and $86 million. That's less than what they gave Juwan Taylor 3 off seasons ago, I guess now. They gave him 4 for 88, if you recall correctly. 4 for 86, $21.5 million a year, which would be the highest average annual value of any guard. $52.5 million guaranteed would be the most ever for a guard. And if the Chiefs do want to go to 5 years, that would take obviously, if you maintain the average annual value, that would take the deal to something like $107.5 million. Veach, quoted in the article, talking about Trey Smith, if you're just going to get the best guy, we have a guy right here. He's a guy, too, that you feel like he'll get the 5 years with whatever you do with the contract. You have a little bit more creativity to open that up. We said a couple of weeks back that the first domino for the Chiefs offseason was Travis Kelce. They had to get a feel for what his decision was going to be. Was he going to play? Was he leaning toward retirement? And whatever decision that was going to be for Travis Kelce was going to inform, I thought, in large part, how the Chiefs advanced through their offseason. Well, it sounds like the Chiefs are confident in how that domino is going to fall. Widespread belief in the front office that Kelce is coming back for 2025. So now the biggest offseason domino is Trey Smith. And the bottom line with Trey Smith is this. However you feel about the money, you could look at the money and say $21.5 million guaranteed for a guard who, look, he's been very good for the Chiefs and he was a Pro Bowl this year, but it's not like we're talking about a first-team All-Pro here. Can you justify that kind of financial outlay for a guard? Here's the counter argument. If the goal of this offseason, coming off of that embarrassing Super Bowl loss to the Eagles, is to improve the offensive line, there is no realistic path to doing that does not involve keeping Trey Smith. You cannot, with a straight face, claim that you upgraded what was obviously in the Super Bowl your weakest link if you let Trey Smith, a Pro Bowl member, a trusted member of that offensive line, get away. Now, was Trey Smith good in the Super Bowl? No, he wasn't. Nobody was. That's what got to win. Xavier-worthy, piling up yardage in garbage time, that could walk out of the Super Bowl with their head held high, to walk out of the Superdome that night feeling good about their performance. So Trey Smith had a bad game in the Super Bowl. It'd be like that sometimes. Bad day to have a bad day. By and large, Trey Smith is still one of the best guards in the league, one of the most trusted guards in the league, a trusted piece of that Chiefs offensive line. And we know the Chiefs value good guard play. Look at the deal Laurent Duvernay-Tardif got when he was in his prime. Look at the money they gave Joe Thuney in free agency, coming off of the previous embarrassing Super Bowl loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Super Bowl 55. They value guard play. They've got one of the best. They've got, if I can do some math here, less than 2 weeks, just about 2 weeks, to make it so that Trey Smith never hits the open market. And they have more salary cap flexibility to do it. Spencer, I don't know about you, but I've been of the mind that Trey Smith wasn't going to be back. And I had talked myself into, the Chiefs can take that money and, they give Justin Reed a deal, or they could do another deal for Hollywood Brown, or they could add a skill guy.
Yeah.
But I've come back around to the belief that if the Chiefs come out of the Super Bowl, come out of this 2024 season feeling like, hey, we have to be better up front, there's no way to do that if you don't keep Trey Smith.
Yeah,
Ergo, this is priority number one, and it has to get done.
Yeah, and Brett Veach said that as much this week. And I think not only is this week about seeing what the next player is, who the next guy is, who you're going to draft, what their 40 times are, how do they move around the draft boards because you're seeing them in front of you. It's also the week where you get to mingle with agents and you get to drop numbers, hints of where you want to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to get a contract from him that it's not in the next 7 to 10 days.
They have the opportunity, if it happens before, I forget whether it's March 10th or March 11th. I'm looking
March
for the
12th
day.
is the start of free agency at 3 p.m. Central.
Agents can start negotiating. The legal tampering period starts the morning of March 10th.
Yeah.
So you have until then, it's 12 days, to exclusively negotiate.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, scouting combine is an opportunity to, take somebody's agent to St. Elmo's or Steak and Shake. Like, I mean, not every meal in Indianapolis is taken at St. Elmo's. They have other nice restaurants too. There's one real nice Steak and Shake out by the airport that I've been to a couple of times.
There's one real nice restaurant right next to it. I was listening to somebody in DC Sports. They're like, yeah, we're not there, but we're right next to there. Yeah. We're really here.
I had a good deli sandwich in the mall one time. Like, Circle Center Mall. Like, there are other places.
Harry and Izzy's. That's what it's called.
Harry and Izzy's. Thank you.
Right next to it.
Anyhow. You sit down, you wine and dine the agent, and you make it very clear that you want to show their clients some love, and you want to keep them in Kansas City. And beyond the kind of player that Trey Smith is, because I think we can agree that Trey Smith is a player worth keeping. We can quibble about the price, but are you a better team if Trey Smith is on it? Yes. Yes, you are. I think reasonable people can disagree about paying a guard $21.5 million. If you're Seahawks general manager John Schneider, you would say, no, we're never going to pay a guard any amount of money. Have you seen that offensive line? I would urge you to avert your eyes. So, there is value in having good play on the interior, and continuity is so important on the offensive line. The Chiefs have had that continuity with Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey, who is, of course, already on an extension or starts his extension next year, and Trey Smith, since the latter two were drafted together in the 2021 NFL draft. But beyond the player that Trey Smith is also the kind of person that I think you want to have in your locker room. High character guy, has overcome a great deal of adversity to get to where he's at. I said before, I think he's the kind of guy that maybe wins a Walter Payton Man of the Year award sometime in his career. Like he is that kind of person, I think. And you want to reward your good people, not just your good players. You want to reward your good people in your organization, because other players notice if you treat the guy who shows up and plays every game and goes hard and plays with an edge and does the right things off the field and is about all the right things. And if you look at that player and say, yeah, no thanks, we can do better, other players notice. The rest of your locker room notices that too. So the case for keeping Trey Smith always has been strong. And I think it gets stronger when you hear Brett Veach talk about the importance of offensive line play, when you hear him say things like he did yesterday, quote, if you look at what we've done in free agency, it's always been offensive line and defensive line. You just want to make sure you have the line secured and protect the quarterback. The proof is in the pudding with that 2021 offseason class and draft class. The Chiefs value the protection of their most precious asset, the best quarterback in the NFL. And you don't make that group better by letting a crucial part go. It may cost the Chiefs an opportunity to bring back a player at a different position. It may cost them a chance to bring back Justin Reid, which I think is too bad because I like Justin Reid. I like him as a person, as a locker room leader. I like him as a player. I think he has good football left. But I think they might be in a position, the Chiefs, where they have to choose between Nick Bolton and Justin Reid. And I've been consistent on this. They're keeping Nick Bolton. They are not letting Nick Bolton go. He is too important to Steve Spagnuolo, and he is too important to how that defense operates.
What if that number is where they can't reach?
I have a hard time believing that they're going to let a number get in the way. Like, unless the ask is super unreasonable. Unless he's out there asking for market-setting money for a middle linebacker, an off-ball linebacker, which I don't think he's going to. I cannot imagine a world where the Chiefs do not bring back Nick Bolton. I think that if another team tried to pick up Nick Bolton and drive him to the airport, Steve Spagnuolo would lie down in front of the vehicle. He would not let Nick Bolton leave Greater Kansas City. He just wouldn't stand for it. So, yeah, maybe it costs you Justin Reid, or maybe it costs you an opportunity to add a veteran piece at, say, wide receiver. But I've come around to the idea that it is worth it and that it is likely because of how the Chiefs operate.
Yeah.
As Mark B puts in the YouTube live chat, you put the most expensive locks on the bank vault, right? Typically, not one of those $7 master locks you can just rip off of a garden shed in the backyard. No, you put the good stuff. You put the good stuff there on the bank vault. That's for certain. The safe with all the numbers. The big one with like you grab the handle and like really spin for the numbers like you see in the movie. Anyhow, we got plenty more Chiefs to talk about on the show today, including the fact that the draft strengths seem to line up with what the Chiefs could really use out of this 2025 draft. Also, Clark Hunt improving his GPA, but the Chiefs still rank in the bottom 10 in the league in player satisfaction in the latest NFLPA survey. We'll talk college hoops. We'll talk Cats with Tim Fitzgerald, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We still got a lot to come and a short time to get there on a 2-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk here on WIBW. 3:32 on 580 Sports Talk. We got more Chiefs to get to, but why don't we check in on the Royals? Spring training action down in Surprise today. It's the Dan Lucero Bowl. Royals and Rockies' first meeting of the spring. Rockies 6, Royals 4 in the 5th, though the Royals are threatening with 2 on and 2 outs in the bottom of the 5th. We gave him a lot of hell yesterday, so we must mention that MJ Melendez is 2 for 3 with a couple of ribs today.
I like it.
We gave him a lot of grief. We got a couple of RBI singles today. Nick Lofton, a pair of hits. He's had a very impressive spring so far. 2 doubles, in fact, for Nick Lofton. Hitting Harold Castro has an RBI. He's not going to make the team. Don't worry about him. Hitting Harold, hit my line. I got some great restaurant recommendations for Omaha. That's where you're going to spend your summer. Michael Massey has a hit and a walk. He's DHing today. Joey Weimer started in center field. He has a hit. Michael Wacha struck out the first 4 batters he faced and then gave up a home run and proceeded to give up 3 runs in his second inning of work. Didn't walk anybody, gave up 3 hits. Daniel Lynch, 2 innings of work, gave up a run on 3 hits, struck out 2, didn't walk anybody. Tough inning for young Noah Cameron, who is a sleeper to maybe make some starts this year on the mound for the Royals. I know they're really high on him. Left-hander, had a great year in the minors last year. He gave up 2 runs in the 5th. The good news, if you are, I guess, inclined to look for the silver lining in a spring training result, like, dang it, they're losing to the Rockies. How the hell is that possible? Well, it may brighten your day to learn that most of the damage being done by a former Kansas State Wildcat. Nick Martini has a pair of home runs for the Rockies today and 3 runs driven in. He's going to make the team and get 500 at-bats. Just you watch. From K-State purple to Rockies purple. He's going to make the team and get a ton of at-bats because Bud Black, the Rockies manager, has a veteran fetish. And it's as gross as it sounds. But anyhow, Royals now have the bases loaded with Drew Waters at the plate, 2 on, or rather 2 out in the 5th, chance to tie or take the lead as they look to remain unbeaten in Cactus League play. Real quick, I wanted to bring this up. Matt Miller of ESPN.com published earlier today a piece about what he's hearing from scouts about the 2025 draft class. And one question in particular I thought had an interesting answer as far as the Chiefs were concerned. Which position groups have scouts excited? Reading from the article, Miller writes, quote, "The running back class has a chance to be special as 6 backs have at least a second-round grade in my pre-combine rankings. There is also depth. If you can't find a starting running back this year, you're really not just not trying, an NFC West area scout said. There will be starters coming out of rounds 5, 6, and 7. Of course, Chiefs only have 1 pick in those 3 rounds, but could they use one of their 3rd-round picks on a guy like Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson out of Iowa or North Carolina's Omari and Hampton? I think that there's a possibility. I would be stunned if the Chiefs left draft day or left this NFL draft without a running back. Moving on. It's also another strong year for tight ends. The depth is strong. 7 tight ends have a good shot at being selected by the end of day 2. Obviously, that's the position the Chiefs drafted at last year, took Jared Wiley, and things never really got off the ground for him. Would they use another draft pick on that position with Travis Kelce probably only playing 1 more year? I don't know about that unless they're really just completely out on Jared Wiley. If they didn't like what they saw from Wiley last year, it would not be like the Chiefs, though, to admit defeat on a draft pick that soon. So I don't know that they're going to go tight end. The last part, and finally, the defensive line group must be lauded. Penn State edge Abdul Carter anchors the class. There are 31 defensive linemen in Matt Miller's top 100. Can never have too many D linemen. Certainly the Chiefs need to stack up some edge rusher depth, some defensive tackle depth, and they would have an opportunity to do that. That might be where they can find the best value relative to position at the 31st overall pick. Some of the names I'm seeing available at the bottom of mock drafts that would absolutely be perfect for the Chiefs, guys like Ole Miss's Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I'd do the moonwalk on camera if either of those guys ended up Kansas City Chiefs at number 31. Mel Kiper thinks they'll go tackle. I think that's the conventional wisdom. I think that's probably, you ask like the average NFL fan, who the Chiefs going to draft number 31? The answer you get back, probably some left tackle. Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota was the pick in Mel Kiper's most recent mock draft. Ursary is a massive blocker at 6'6" and 330 pounds. He shows ample power and movement skills on tape. He allowed just 4 sacks over 39 college starts. I just don't think you're finding a good enough starting left tackle at 31 overall. Either you got to move up or you got to play the free agent game with a left tackle.
Yeah, I think left tackles top 10 or top, I'd say 10 to 15.
There are some good ones in this class. Like Josh Connerly out of Oregon is solid. Kelvin Banks, if he measures tall enough, could maybe be looked at as a tackle. And you see those guys in the 20s or late teens in a lot of drafts, or even out of the first round entirely. Like, I think either of those picks would be good for the Chiefs. I just don't think you want to go in with a shrug of the shoulders. You want to be dead certain who you're going to start at left tackle in week 1. And last year, the Chiefs weren't, and it bit them, ended up biting them in a bad way in the Super Bowl. We'll take another break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Chiefs got their grades in the NFLPA player survey released today. They were better than last year, but still lagging behind their peers. See us after class, Clark Hunt. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. .342 on 580 Sports Talk. Text line's open, 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the YouTube chat if you are watching on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. We were talking about Mel Kiper's recent NFL mock draft on ESPN.com has the Chiefs taking a left tackle. Mark B in the YouTube comments asks, how do the Chiefs make room for yet another left tackle? Well, start with one of them's a guard now. Kingsley Suamataia, I do not believe is viewed by the Chiefs as a tackle any longer.
Yeah, no, don't think so.
Yeah, I think he might be in the Mike Caliendo backup guard role moving forward, or the Nick Allegretti all-purpose sixth offensive lineman role potentially. Yeah. I would not be surprised if the Chiefs do not bring Trey Smith back, if Kingsley Suamataia is your starting right guard week 1. I think that might be their backup plan right now. And look, wasn't good at tackle. You know what sometimes failed tackles become? Good guards. It's sort of like relief pitchers in baseball. Every relief pitcher was at one time a starting pitcher who didn't hack it as a starter. And they figured out relief worked for them, and then they became like Wade Davis. Wade Davis, not a good starting pitcher. And then for 3 years, he was the greatest relief pitcher I ever saw. Every reliever at some point or another is a failed starter. And most guards are either tackles that are in the NFL anyway, too short to play tackle, or didn't hack it at tackle. Yeah. Mekhi Becton started in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Miserable time of it at tackle, although that was with the Jets. So how much of that was Jets stink, who can say? But started at guard, played really well for the Eagles this year. So that is what I would say, Mark, is that their tackle mix is probably going to be whoever ends up starting at left tackle, Juwan Taylor at right tackle, and then your swing tackle is probably Wanye Morris, and then if they draft another one, probably your fourth tackle, or maybe they draft a starter. I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. I just don't think that's the most prudent course of action. I'd be really surprised if the Chiefs, especially if they stay at 31, end up with a starting caliber left tackle, at least right away out of the draft. The National Football League Players Association put out their annual team report cards. Last year, you'll recall, Clark Hunt got an F-. This year, Clark Hunt got a C-. That only moves him up to 26th out of 32 in the league. But great strides made by the Chiefs, even though as a team, they only moved up to 26th out of 32 teams. If you look at some of their rankings, they got a C+ in weight room. That's average, right? C's get degrees. A C+ weight room is 30th best in the league.
Yeah. Well, I think some of this weight room stuff might be are we going to invest right now, or are we going to wait for a new facility and a new stadium? Because those rumors are circling all around KC right now.
That is a great point regarding why there might be facility upgrades that are slow in coming. Here's what the overview said from NFLPA.com. The Kansas City Chiefs ranked 26th this season, but have made significant strides in multiple areas. They improved their family offerings by introducing stadium daycare for day games, resulting in a notable boost in their grade. This offseason, the team invested in a new full-time dietitian who was previously with the Jets. This led to an improved food program grade and a dramatic increase in their nutritionist dietitian score from an F last year to an A- this year. Players continue to express the need for renovation and upgrades to the locker room, which has been their top request complaint in prior surveys. Players also want a new home game hotel, since the one the team currently uses ranks the lowest in the league. So if people don't know, most players don't sleep in their own beds the night before a game. They go to a hotel, to block out the distractions. Coaches,
but you have your meetings and your production meetings if you're away, if you're the away team.
Yeah, there are other reasons for it beyond just being an old school football hardo or whatever. But so the Chiefs, they have a home game hotel that they stay at. I don't think it's the old shuttered Adams Mark across from the caddy corner from the Truman Sports Complex.
Well, if it was, that would make sense.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, it's them next to Travis Kelce ducking out to go do the slides at Coco Key before a game. No, that's not what's happening. Anyway, here's what the report card says. Players say their home game hotel is below standard. They report that it is outdated, the beds are uncomfortable, and many players even keep their shoes on in their rooms because the floors, especially in the bathroom, are dirty and sticky. If I started talking about this around my wife, I think that she would get the worst ick anyone has ever had. My wife will not walk around in a hotel room barefoot. Won't do it. Will not do it. under any circumstances, always like brings sandals to wear in the hotel. Got to have hotel sandals. Can't put your feet on that floor. You don't know what's been on that floor. And like, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
I get it. Yep.
I'm a little more lax about it. I will occasionally walk. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna wake up 3 a.m. to go, get a drink of water or something, or go to the bathroom at 6 a.m. I got to put on socks. Like, well, bring your hotel slides next time, Dan. It's a good point. Leftover trash from previous occupants is also a common issue. The Chiefs' home game hotel scored the lowest across the entire NFL.
Where do they stay?
Great question. You know who's not going to be in a hurry to tell anyone? The hotel itself. No chance.
The general manager's hotel is like their buddy DM'd or sent them this and is like, yo, this is a bad look for you guys.
Yeah, no, it's somebody's having a very bad day. Somebody in the hospitality hospitality industry is having a very bad day. The Atlanta Falcons ranked 3rd out of 32 teams on the list. The Cardinals, by the way, were dead last, in case you were curious. But I wanted to read this from the Falcons. This is from the overview. Players identify 2 key improvement areas: the need for 1 additional physical therapist and better ventilation in the new locker room bathrooms. It comes up again in the locker room section. As mentioned in the overview, many players complain about a ventilation issue in the locker room that seems to cause a persistent bad odor. Somebody is blowing up the bathroom at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's not acceptable. Somebody keeps blowing up the can, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. So who ended up being number 1? I'm trying to find and see who ended up being the number 1 team here. Was it the Vikings were 2nd?
Let me see.
Who was number 1?
I'm trying to find. There's no good way to go overall. Although I've seen graphics.
There's not. There's really not a good way. It's the Dolphins. Their owner, Stephen Ross, is the highest grade owner. They are ranked number 1 in 7 of the 11 evaluated categories. They were 1st in food, dining area, 1st in training room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, and ownership. All that, that and $1 will get you a newspaper. You can read all the scores of the playoff games you're not playing in if you're a Miami Dolphin. So, that's the thing about this. The Chiefs came out 26th, even though, the only thing they got, a really bad grade in was the locker room. They got D- for their locker room. They got C- for ownership and training room. But, hey, C- better than the F- they got. Here's what the players said about Clark this year. Owners' average rating for perceived willingness to invest in the facilities is 6.61 out of 10, which ranks 26th. The players feel that Hunt moderately contributes to a positive team culture. I think one of his great strengths is just getting out of the way. The players feel that Hunt is committed to building a competitive team. Oh, do they? Is that right? What evidence do they have? Show your work. What evidence do you have that Clark Hunt is committed to building a competitive team? And yet, he only ranked 17th out of the 32 NFL owners in commitment to building a competitive team.
Did you see who the 4th ranked team is?
Who is the 4th ranked team?
The Raiders.
Really?
Their ownership got an A. Coach A-.
I could see people liking Mark Davis. It's not his fault that he's cash poor relative to, the rest of the owners in the league. But, wow, Raiders. Again, 4th out of 32 teams. Where do they rank in record again? There's no grade here for quarterback,
Yeah.
It's just, but that goes to show you, though, that, if you can get a C+ in something and it be the 30th best in the league, that just goes to show you how high the standards is and how high relative satisfaction with being an NFL player must be. It must rule to be an NFL player.
Yeah.
It must be awesome.
Cincinnati, a C for ownership.
That's about right.
Yeah.
I would buy that. We'll take a quick break, come back, play a little One Gotta Go to wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. It's one gotta go time on 580 Sports Talk. We had to jump over your random question yesterday, Spencer, and for that I am sorry. And for that reason, I will let you go first with a one gotta go today.
Yes, this is a pretty easy one. It's not three. It's if you could only have one thing left in the world, would you either have podcasts or music? Like if you could only listen to one thing ever again.
Probably music because, like, you know, I can replace podcasts with just like, I guess that would make the radio more. Talk radio would be my only option if I wanted to listen to some things, right?
Yeah.
You have to catch it live.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't podcast, you have to catch it live or hit that record button on the stereo. You ever record radio? I mean, you're too young.
I've recorded radio through internet stream onto my computer.
Yeah, you're too young to have done the mixtape. Like when a song you like comes on, you go hit that record button, and then you got a 2-sided tape all your favorite songs to play in your Walkman. You're too young for this.
Sorry, I'm way too young.
You're so young. You're much too young for this, man. I had like 3 tapes. All my favorite. Oh yeah, Around the World by Red Hot Chili Peppers is on. I got to hit record. Yes, got it on tape now. I can listen to it whenever I want. I also used to record. Jim Rome's best of shows every year in December. I'd record his best ofs, go back and listen to those. He did one take. There was a story out of South Africa about a soccer referee pulling a knife on a player and the player pulling out a gun and murdering the referee on the field.
Jeez.
And not a funny story, but an incredibly funny take. That was back in the Jim Rome hates soccer era. So you can only imagine. Like I wore that tape out. I listened to it a lot. What about you? Real quick, music or podcast?
Definitely I'd take away podcasts. I'd keep music because there's so much music out there.
For sure. We only got one more hour before we make way for K-State hoops. We're going to talk college basketball. Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us in the second and final hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2, and the final hour of today's show here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on video. Check out our video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis across the glass. Just the two of us today because Brendan Dworzinski is making way to Southeast Kansas and lovely Pittsburgh and the John Lance Arena and I swear to you, Spencer, I am not making this up, inside the Garfield Weed Building.
What?
The Garfield Weed Building.
Okay.
Yes. Garfield Weed, that's WEEDE. He was one of the first college coaches to allow racial integration among his players.
All right.
He was the 10th head football coach at Washburn University and was the head coach and athletic director from 1906 until 1908. Went 26-4 as head coach at Washburn. And he was the head coach at what was then called Cooper Memorial College and is now known as Sterling College in Sterling, Kansas. Didn't have quite as much success there over 9 seasons, 21-25-3. And then in 1919 was hired as coach of all sports and director of athletics at Pittsburgh Manual Training Normal College, now known as Pittsburgh State University, in Pittsburgh. He coached football team to a 46-33-7 record, including the first undefeated team in 1924. They were declared KCAC champions. Garfield Weed was inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame in 1961. He was also a dentist. Got a doctor of dental surgery from the University of Pennsylvania in 1906. Hey, yes, this is my dentist, Garfield Weed.
What a name.
He remained the athletic director, by the way, after his coaching career came to an end in
all
football.
Sports? Oh, I thought he was an all sports coach.
All sports. Yes, he coached all sports, by which we mean football and basketball. Yeah, he coached basketball until 1922, football until 1928, and remained athletic director until 1951. And now the athletics building, which contains John Lance Arena, is called the Garfield Weed Building.
Okay.
So there you go. Here's I found a picture on findagrave.com. This must be his graduation. This must be his yearbook photo from Sterling College, Cooper College, as it was known. Garfield Wilson Weed, nicknamed Sunflower and Lengthy.
All right.
I don't know how you get that kind of nickname. Anyway, bit of a divergence. But anyway, that's where Brendan's going to be. Brendan should already have walked into the Garfield Weed Building and set up shop at John Lance Arena. Washburn basketball tonight. Final week of the regular season in the MIAA. Ichabod men and women are taking on the Gorillas of Pittsburgh State. Women tip off at 5:30. Men follow. Pre-game coverage starting at 5:15. Brendan's got the call over on our sister station, your exclusive home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9.
And if you follow him on social media, you'll see his iconic Brahms picture post game tonight.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to hit Brahms post.
Oh, he told me he was.
Yeah.
And then he also found out there's one in Joplin.
There is.
And he's going to get one on He's going to get Brahms on Saturday after the game too.
You know, I don't blame him. That's a good thought. Yep.
Yeah.
They're at Missouri Southern in Joplin on Saturday. Jake and I typically would go to the Culvers. And this was before the era, back when Jake LeBon and I did the Washburn broadcast. We would go to the Culvers in Joplin. This was before Topeka had a Culvers. So Culvers was a special treat. It is still a special treat. It's just a more readily available treat to us than it used to be. Anyhow, that's where Brendan's at. A long way to get there. But now you know, Garfield Weed, real person, Pitt State legend, former Washburn head coach.
Also, I've never really looked at a map of Kansas. I mean, I have, but I just thought Pittsburgh State was in the middle of the state.
No.
I did when he told me yesterday I was just asked him how long the drive was, and he was like, "It's not too bad. You just head east towards Overland Park and then head down whatever Route 59 or 69."
It is 69.
Yes.
Yes.
And then he's like,
take Route 69 to the Garfield Weed Building.
He said you literally can hit the building if you drive straight.
Also,
and so I had no clue it was in the southeastern part of the state.
You know, if it were me, I would have gone early and then gone to either Chicken Annie's or Chicken Mary's.
What's the difference?
Well, I forget which one came first, but there was a familial dispute that led to the opening of the second one, which, and this is not a joke, is right across the street. Not even across the street. They're on the same side of the street. Chicken Annie's, Chicken Mary's. I think I've been to both. I think I lean Annie's, but not a lot of differences. Not a lot of discrepancies.
Oh, my God.
We're getting really into Kansas lore with Spencer today. I'm so excited about this. People that are listening are like, yeah, we know. Chicken Annie's, Chicken Mary's. You gotta keep in mind, we all had to learn it, right? And Spencer's learning it on the fly.
They're literally right next to each other.
They sure are, yeah.
They both close at 8 p.m.
Well, that I did not know. So yeah, you can't really be a post-game stop. You gotta do that pregame. We did that one year when the Shrine Bowl was in Pittsburgh. Myself and Brendan and Jake and Frank Doggy, we stopped at. I'm pretty sure it was Annie's that night. Is where we went. So yeah, Annie's is my lean, but both good. Can't go wrong. Either Annie or Mary in Pittsburgh. That's where Brendan is. He'll be back tomorrow. Coming up on this hour of the program, it's our final hour of the show today, by the way. So it's a good thing we spent 5 minutes on Garfield Weed.
And restaurants in Pittsburgh.
Chicken restaurants in Pittsburgh. Because we've only got the rest of this hour, and then we break away for K-State basketball. The Wildcats are in Orlando tonight against UCF. Pre-game coverage starting at 5 o'clock on the K-State Sports Network before the tip-off at 6. We'll break it down with Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. He'll join us at the bottom of this hour to talk all things K-State. Fitz, of course, joins us every Wednesday. We call the segment the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Looking forward to talking to Fitz here in just a little bit. We'll also crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You, because we've got the semifinals for February coming up tomorrow, and then the February championship for What Is Wrong With You coming up on Friday. That, of course, sponsored by our buddy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan Mo Winkle. I did want to talk college basketball here, but how about this breaking news from the NFL football ops session with the media earlier today out in Indianapolis? The Hawkeye virtual measurement for line to gain is slated to replace the chain gang as the primary measurement system for first downs in the 2025 NFL season.
Wow.
The chain gang will remain on the sidelines as basically a decoration, but we will now be measuring first downs with the Hawkeye system, the same system that is used to determine in or out line calls in tennis, and is also a big part of the automatic ball strike system in Major League Baseball.
So how long till they go away from having humans at all in this running a chain game?
Like, I don't know why they're hanging around other than if the system breaks.
I guess.
Or like the visual cue of, oh, there's the guy with the stick. That's where I need to go.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's still maybe valuable if for no other reason than as a visual cue and as a fail safe to some extent. But
they're keeping, 3 people employed?
Yeah. Well,
at every stadium.
At every stadium. So welcome to new technology for measuring first downs. Go ahead and call it the Josh Allen rule.
Did you know that each stadium has like their own, speaking of what they have their own personnel that do this? Like you can get hired for a position.
Yeah. Like
my brother-in-law's best friend is he basically coordinates with the radio with the neurologist, the guy watching the video upstairs if somebody gets hit in the head. Like he coordinates with them. Like that's his weekly job at Northwest Stadium for the Commanders. You how do you get that job? Like any of those jobs.
That always felt like somebody, you had to know somebody.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm too old. It's gonna be my buddy's son. He's in his late 20s.
You hand him down.
Yes. Or my son or whatever.
Yeah, it's handed down. Goodness. We appreciate those of you who are watching us on our YouTube 580 Sports Talk and on our Facebook page WIBW News. Also, would love to hear from you on the live chat on YouTube. Sorry about the music, guys. Also, you can text us on the text line 785-272-9429. There's 785-272-9429. This is what happens. We talk about get rolling on Garfield weed, and we forget to turn off the interstitial music on the YouTube. Hope you still enjoyed it. That little diversion. Anyhow, let's get into what we want to talk about. So Houston's going to win the Big 12 again. That is all but done and dusted. They are going to win the Big 12 for a second year in a row since they entered the league. They are 31-4 over the last 2 years against Big 12 competition. If you go back to their final years in the American, Houston has won 6 of their last 7 conference championships and only didn't win in the COVID year because they played more games than Wichita State. And there was a scheduling oddity, and Wichita State ended up with the unbalanced schedule and a better winning percentage and won the conference. And then they gave their head coaching job to Isaac Brown, and they're still recovering. So we had talked on Monday's show, and we talk about this a lot when it comes to success in college sports, that so much of whether you have a successful athletic department or not comes down to how badly do you want to have a successful athletic department? Kansas football, for example. How badly did Kansas want to be good at football? For a while there, the answer was not badly enough, right? Like, I think we can all agree. I think even the most dyed-in-the-wool Kansas fan, if ours was sitting across from us instead of driving past Chicken Annie's right now, would say the same, that Kansas was not appropriately committed to being great at football. And so they were bad at football for a very long time. And now they've committed more resources. They hired a really good coach. They're building the new stadium, and their fortunes have turned. They are better and in better shape with a better future than you would have said they had prior to even the Les Miles hiring. Want to goes a long way. How bad do you want it? And the ways in which that manifests is not just, well, okay, like how hard does your team play, or how do your fans come out to watch the team? No. In this modern era of college sports, how much money are you willing to spend? Bottom line, what's the pocketbook look like? What's the bank account look like? And how much are you willing to spend on the things that make a great program? Like facilities, yes. Coaches, yes. And now players. How much are you willing to spend on the dudes? So that's what we really mean at the end of the day. We're talking about want to. Houston has a lot of want to as an athletic department. A lot. And with that Tillman Fertitta money, he keeps breaking off checks for them. A very wealthy man who also owns the Houston Rockets. His name's on the arena. That want to has helped Houston go from a program that really, it went from, in the 80s, if you were alive then, you remember, and certainly you've seen the grainy footage of Phi Slamma Jamma. Yeah. It went from that to, in the 90s and the 2000s, that was a pretty irrelevant program. They hired Clyde Drexler to be their coach at one point. That didn't go very well. Like, they were unserious program. And now they are not only extremely serious, as we sit here today, they are the best basketball program in the Big 12. They have dominated the league since joining the league. It used to be that if you looked at the end of a Big 12 season, and we are coming up on the end, only 3 games remaining in this Big 12 men's basketball season, and you said, all right, as the dust settles on this year of Big 12 basketball, which program is in the best position for next year and call it the half decade to come? Which program is in the best spot? Which program would you want to be if you could be any program in the Big 12? And I think, for no exaggeration, the entirety of your life, Spencer, but like the better part of this century.
Yeah.
The answer has been Kansas.
Kansas. Yeah.
You would say Kansas, and Steve Harvey would go, show me Kansas, and it would be 100 Kansas. Everybody would answer Kansas, or close to everybody would answer Kansas. I don't think Kansas is the number one answer on the Family Feud board right now. I think that between the level of want-to that Houston has shown. And here's the scary thing. You know how many lottery picks Houston's had in this stretch of what should be 8 straight NCAA tournament appearances, because they're going to make it this year, and they would have made it in the COVID year. 8 straight tournament appearances, 6 years in 7 of winning conference championships. You know how many lottery picks they've had in that stretch? Give it a guess, Spence.
4?
1. 1 lottery pick. Jarris Walker was a lottery pick. He was a one and done. Went number 8 to the Pacers a couple of years ago. He's a rotation guy for them this year. Young. He was like 17, 18 when he got drafted. So 1 lottery pick. Like, imagine if the recruiting of high school players and the level of talent starts to match the level of achievement that Houston has had under Kelvin Sampson. Between that and let's talk 1-2, let's talk big bank, let's talk paying players, ponying up for the talent. Let's talk about BYU. Let's talk about what they've done, the inroads they've made internationally. Like, Igor Demin is a decent player. We talked to CJ Moore about him. He's been a little underwhelming, but when you watch him play, you still see glimpses of, you understand why. If you watch him play against Arizona, you could see why he was such a big deal coming overseas to play at BYU. Next year, A.J. Dybancis is the #1 high school player in America, and he's going to BYU because BYU wrote the fattest check.
Yeah.
It's not because A.J. Dybancis converted to Mormonism. They wrote the big check, so that's where A.J. Dybancis is going to go play basketball. They've got the pro-style system, right? They hired the coach with the NBA background. They have so thoroughly shaped the thinking of at least one team in the conference, their biggest historical rival, that Utah got out ahead of it and fired their coach so they could get started on being like BYU. Between what is happening with those two programs and what we have seen happen with Kansas this year, where they are all but certain to be outside of a top 4 seed for the first time this century. And I no longer think that you can feel that Kansas is in the best shape. Does that mean that they are in bad shape? No. They're going to continue to be very good. I think they will be better next year. I think they will look a little bit more modern. I think a player like Darian Peterson will be the best they've had in some time, and maybe the best high school player ever recruited by Bill Self, some have said. So
I think Flory too, a year into the program, a guy that needed a little bit. We talked with Michael Swain yesterday about what I asked him what he thought about his freshman season, and he said he's a guy that was never going to be a 1-year guy. You give him 1 year in the program and you see where he goes into his second year.
Absolutely. Like, KU's going to be fine. This is not, KU is mid now. KU is, but they're not the undisputed top dog. They've got people that have made it to at least where they can see the perch that Kansas has been on in this league for so long. And they're close enough and within arm's reach enough to start taking some swings and try to knock KU off that pedestal. And Houston now has done it. 2 straight years they've done it. And no reason that train should stop as long as Kelvin Sampson is there. BYU is going to spend their way to relevance and, again, look more modern. That's been the biggest thing. And this is another topic for another day because we are going to have to take a break at some point here. But how modern a team like BYU looks in terms of how they play. Like, I know that there are people, when they talk about the NBA style, they mean it derogatorily. They mean it a derogatory way. They roll their eyes. But like, there's a style of play in the NBA. There's a style of offense. There's a way you space the floor. There's a, layups or threes, that kind of offense and how you get quality looks. And BYU's offense feels more modern than KU's does because they have a more modern feeling lineup than KU does. KU still, so much of their stuff is back to the basket big man. You don't see a lot of teams in the NBA. You don't see anybody running offense around a back to the basket center. Like, Nikola Jokic is the closest thing, and he's not a true back to the basket guy because he can operate out of the top of the key because he's the best player in the world. So I do think that if you asked, again, who's best set up for the next 5 years in the Big 12, Kansas is an answer, but I don't think they're the answer anymore. And so that puts Bill Self and Kansas basketball in a really fascinating place because we talk about 1-2. Who's always wanted to be really good at basketball from the very beginning? Kansas. And they are not going to let themselves get out want-to'd if that's a turn of phrase I can invent on the fly, they're not going to let that happen for very long. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you coming up? Tim Fitzgerald coming up to talk K-State sports on this final hour of a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by our buddy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan Mo Winkle. Why don't you give him a call, 785-273-1572, or visit his website, Ryan Mowinkle, that's MOWINKLE.com. Our current weekly champion, bet this cop won't fight me at this 7-Eleven. The young man in Boston who had fentanyl on him when he tried to pick a fight with a cop and a transit officer, and followed him all the way into a 7-Eleven and asked him to buy him food and poked his badge, which I got to admit, that's a little funny, and really tried to squabble up with an officer. Here's the thing about trying to squabble up with an officer. You're really trying to squabble up with multiple officers, because you know what you ain't got? that officers got? The ability to call for backup. And he lost the fight, and then they found the fentanyl on him, and he got in some big trouble. So that's our current champion on What Is Wrong With You. We are crowning a weekly champion today so we can have our February semifinals tomorrow. That means 2 new stories today. Spencer, what do you got?
Yeah, we're going to go back to Florida. I think it's been a while since we've had a Florida story. A Florida man accused of breaking into somebody's house in the Buff has been arrested.
Oh, boy. We got a naked Florida man.
Yeah. According to the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, a man came home on Sunday evening to find a naked burglar inside his residence. When deputies arrived on scene, they said Keaton Mercier, 24, put on a pair of underwear, but he refused to exit the home. Deputies entered the home and arrested him for not only burglary, but also on a warrant for aggravated battery by strangulation from a case in January. He was taken to the hospital to be treated for cuts on his arm and legs he sustained from breaking into the house, as well as due to his erratic behavior from possibly using drugs. According to PCSO, deputies said they found pools of blood on the kitchen counter and floor near a broken window. They also found several glass pipes typically used with narcotics. He has a previous conviction for battery back in 2022. He was taken to the county jail and held without bond.
So here's my question. They said when deputies showed up on the scene, he put on a pair of underwear. Where did you get that underwear from, man?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Where did you get that from? Was it just like sitting around? Was there like a basket of laundry? Do sheriff's deputies carry spare underpants on them?
Hell, it's Florida. Maybe
they really should. Honestly, That might be an idea. You put one of those in your utility belt in case you run into somebody in the nude. Which, like, again, par for the course. This is Florida we're talking about. Yeah, I got my cuffs. I got my nightstick. I got my flashlight. I have my service weapon. I maybe got a taser. And just in case, I got some draws. Just in case. That's my favorite part of that story.
Yeah.
My story, we're going to Georgia. 38-year-old Stephen Glosser has been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison after planting a bomb that severely damaged a woman's home. He pled guilty to stalking and use of an explosive to commit a felony offense. Back in January of 2023, an explosion extensively damaged a home in Richmond Hill in Georgia. The explosion was so powerful it blew bricks off the residence and made a 2-by-2-foot crater in the concrete driveway. Somehow, neither occupant of the home, a woman and a child, were in the house at the time, were injured. Glosser and a co-conspirator were arrested about a month after the explosion. So Glosser had met the woman who owned the home through a dating app, and the two had a casual relationship that had ended, at which point Glosser decided that the woman needed to die and created a plan to kill, intimidate, harass, or injure the victim. The pair planned to shoot arrows into the woman's front door and buy and release a large python into the victim's home. The plan was that the snake would eat the victim's daughter.
Jeez.
They also planned to mail dog feces and dead rats to her home. So, real prize here.
Yeah.
Casual relationship that ended. Natural reaction. And you know what? Plenty of fish in the sea. I'll re-download Tinder. Like if we were single long enough, we all been there, right?
Yeah.
In this modern day and age, you're with somebody, you think it's going well, it's not. Tough luck. Got to go find those apps again. I had deleted them. I really felt good about this one. Got to go back to the Apple store. It's got that little cloud.
Yeah.
It doesn't say get anymore. It's in the cloud. It doesn't take as long. It saved all your information. You hit that cloud. You bring back Bumble, and you bring back Hinge, and you bring back OkCupid, and you bring back Adult Friend Finder, and you bring them all back. J-Dates. Bring them all back.
Can't say I've really heard of the latter ones.
That's smart. Smart to pretend you don't know. That's the move. Not I'm gonna blow up this person's house and get a snake to eat their child. Like that's super villain stuff.
Yeah.
Like a Boris Badenov from Rocky and Bullwinkle type of stuff.
I think that wins the day.
I don't know. I think yours is funnier. Honestly, I like yours better today. The idea that this naked guy there's not much to the story, but I love the thought that he just produced a pair of underpants at the end of it. Like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, I guess the story doesn't really say where they come from. You gotta use your own imagination.
Let me put these draws on real quick. I just happen to be holding
All
them.
right.
Wow,
you got me there.
All right. But does that beat the guy tried to fight transit officer at the 7-Eleven? No, I don't think so either.
Poking the badge.
Bet this cop won't fight me at this 7-Eleven moves on, and it joins 3 other really good stories in tomorrow's What Is Wrong With You February semifinals. What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our guy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan, Mo Winkle. See what Mo Winkle Insurance and Financial Services can do for you if a naked person breaks into your house, for instance. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. It's always a victory when we have Tim Fitzgerald on the horn with us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joins us every Wednesday here on the program for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, my question after Sunday's K-State men's basketball loss to Arizona State, why not ball go in basket?
Ball was too big, apparently. It was a mistake. They used too large of a ball that wouldn't fit through the rim. What a frustrating game that was. You stop and wonder if a couple shots go in early that are beyond 3 feet, because I think their first, I don't know how many shots they made were basically lay-ins. If that game's different, but they just couldn't get the ball to go down, and we saw everything else about their game just kind of slowly erode, from rebounding to defense to they actually rebounded fairly well. They just couldn't score after they rebounded the ball. They just kind of slowly collapsed, and Arizona State was just consistently better than K-State the entire game.
Coleman Hawkins obviously did not play. Does not sound like he's going to play tonight at UCF either. And boy, you could tell they were a very different team without him. And I think it just kind of goes to show that he was a piece. Certainly, we've talked about how much Doug McDaniel's improvement helped K-State along the 6-game winning streak that they had. But Coleman Hawkins was the connective tissue, like the middle piece in the jigsaw puzzle. And not having him meant that all of a sudden everybody else's weaknesses in their game were elevated and everybody else kind of just didn't. There wasn't a 5 that fit when he wasn't a part of the equation.
Well, you stop and think about this roster. You had a core earlier in the year that kind of played the same position and, could have filled that position if he'd still been on the roster. But I actually think the coaches went wrong from the very start by replacing Coleman Hawkins, who couldn't play, with C.J. Jones in the lineup. So they went really small in terms of what they can be. And Arizona State was incredibly long, tall, and athletic. It was a horrible matchup for K-State. They were just outsized and out-athleted, if that's a word, from the start. I think Moby probably should have been in the starting lineup to kind of match that athleticism, but they thought they could take advantage of the size difference in the opposite way and beat them down the court and score, and it just didn't work out the way they had hoped.
The tough part with K-State, and it's been difficult for them all year, and in some ways it feels wrong to call it difficult because it's a good thing that a player has improved and become indispensable and become a leader, and David Gasson is all of those things for K-State. You don't want him to come off the floor, but he can't play the 4. He has to play the 5, and he's undersized for being a 5. And that creates a set of problems that a big team like Arizona State could kind of exacerbate.
Well, you're exactly right. And we saw him play a really good game despite everything you said. And he just works his ass off. 20 points, 14 rebounds, or whatever it ended up being. And I didn't think he was that great. I thought he was the best of the bad. And he was the one that made shots. But you're right. He isn't a true post, and he struggles with that matchup against a true post, which BYU had, Utah had, and Arizona State had guys that filled that role, including a 7-footer who came in and really got the better of K-State when he was out there. So it is a bad matchup, and you can't slide him to the 4 because you pull him away from the rim, everything he does right isn't there because he attacks that rim so well from inside. And losing Coleman Hawkins was not a good situation for this team, and they needed someone to step up. And honestly, no one new stepped up. David Gasson kept playing the way he has. Doug McDaniel's been struggling a little bit, and nobody stepped into the breach to fill the gap.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, is our guest here on 580 Sports Talk, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on the program. What is the prognosis with Hawkins? What is the word on him? Again, doesn't sound like he'll play tonight. Is the hope to get him back before the end of the regular season for the Big 12 tournament? What are you hearing?
I have not heard a schedule. The other night, Jerome Tang said they're still evaluating. And I've even heard mixed information on what the injury is. So they're saying officially it's a knee. I've heard it might be a hairline fracture. But both of those can be rehabbed. He could be back by the end of the year, just depending on how bad it is and how his body accepts the rehab and how much he can take advantage of that. I don't think there's probably is a calendar right now. We'll just see how this team could play without him tonight in Orlando, which seemed like a winnable game until, they just found a way to win a game the other night after a long skid.
So sometimes a team loses an important player. That first game without that player can look rough, and goodness knows we just elucidated all the ways in which it was rough for K-State on Sunday afternoon at Bramlage Coliseum. But now they have some film and some live evidence of what it looks like without Coleman Hawkins. What can they adjust tonight against a UCF team that's one of the worst defensive teams in the conference and give themselves a chance to get out of the oddly named Addition Financial Arena with a win?
That's funny because I show it as the Fifth Third Arena, which is also a weird name. The Fifth Third is what I see listed.
That's what Cincinnati's
That's
gym
Cincinnati.
is called.
That's correct. I
Yes.
absolutely screwed that up on something.
So that's
oh boy.
That's 3 arenas of the 16 off the top of my head that are named after some sort of credit union. Desert Financial down there in Tempe, Addition Financial in Orlando, Fifth Third Arena in Cincinnati.
Well, they've got all the money because they're financial institutions.
Yeah, they've got the money to pay for the sponsorships. Yeah. Anyhow, what can K-State do to pull one out tonight?
They just got to play with more confidence. And those 6 games that they won, they were attacking the other team in every way, defensively and offensively. They were more aggressive rebounding. They were really physical on defense. They turned that into open court offense. And if you ask me if there's one thing they can do, try to get in the open court, run and attack that defense before it gets set up. I think that was the key to success in those 6 games. I think teams now are doing a better job of slowing them down. And K-State just needs to get back to it. They need to get back to really strong defense and motivated offense that they just want to attack the rim. And they were getting to the rim and then kicking it out in the half court and getting really good shots. And they've gotten away from that, Dan. And I'm mystified by it. Because after that first loss, Doug McDaniel, kind of said, okay, that was that. We'll be back. And they haven't been. So if they want any hope at any postseason, they've got to get going here. And this one is pretty important because they're already a game below 500.
We're joined here by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com here for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Tim, last week we talked, I asked you about Aoka Lee returning. She returns for 5 minutes in the Sunflower Showdown. Unfortunately, re-aggravates the injury. K-State puts out a release last night. She has a minor procedure on her non-surgically repaired foot. And she's going to be out through, it appears, the Big 12 tournament, but back ready for the NCAA tournament. It just seems like one thing after another for Aoka Lee, unfortunately, leaving a bad mark on her senior season.
Yeah, I pray this young lady gets a clean string of games to play because I think her body is given out. I'm not sure how much more basketball she has in her after this. I hate to be dramatic here, but it seems like her body's collapsing. The feet, the knees, those things are really giving her problems. And if she can get a clean stretch here and go out playing her type of ball, I think we'd all be happy by that because watching her go through this and end an absolutely brilliant career just as a beaten up shell of what you could be is just unfair to a wonderful human being and a wonderful player.
Final regular season game Sunday for them, and then they start the Big 12 tournament. How do you think they're going to fare without her in the Big 12 tournament?
It's all about matchups, brother. And, if they get the right teams, they're pretty good. I like it when they press. In fact, they got to get back to that. And again, not having their star player, they went on the attack and they tried to dictate tempo with the press and got into the open court and mixed attacking the rim with 3-point shooting and kept the other defense in limbo the entire game. It was really effective. And if they can do that, they can beat anyone in this conference. In fact, they beat TCU without her. So we'll see how it plays out, but they need to get back to that identity and doing that at home on Sundays or doing that Sunday is just really critical.
Couple more questions for Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com, joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Chris Kleiman announced some promotions to his coaching staff earlier this week. Nate Katzer got promoted to the special teams coordinator and special assistant to the head coach. He was brought into some fanfare as a longtime NFL veteran. He's a Kansas guy and brought in to help the special teams. And the special teams was not good this last season. What is the hope that Katzer can do now in a different position to try and have more of an imprint and get K-State back to that special teams use standard?
Yeah. I honestly, I don't have an answer for this one. I know that Coach Kleiman really believes in this coach, and naming him, assistant to the head coach allows him to get him more pay so they can retain him. So obviously he's seeing things he really likes, and it didn't translate to the field necessarily. And hopefully it does, because special teams are a core part of why this program has always succeeded. Let's take that Houston game. If that game had taken place during, one of those years where they're playing really good special teams, there would have been a huge special teams play in that game that totally changed the outcome. And we would have just said, hey, K-State was a better team, and they got this punt return down to the 5, and then they scored, everything changed. And you just didn't see that much this year. You didn't see that big special teams play that changed the momentum of a game. You did against Arizona with the punt return by Dylan Edwards, but for the most part, that just wasn't there. And they got to get back to making big special teams plays, no doubt. But I like these changes. I like that these guys are getting real titles and that reflect the fact that they are coaches. And I like this part of the new NCAA rules.
Tim Fitzgerald covers the Kansas State Wildcats for GoPowerCat.com. Him and his outstanding staff do the best work at making sure the Cats are covered from tip to tail, and you can be a VIP subscriber to 24/7 Sports and make sure you're getting all of the very best insider info. You can also catch Fitz with us every Wednesday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline when he joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, it's always a pleasure. We'll look forward to doing it again next week.
Well, hopefully by then I've got my new title as assistant coach for snacks. I'm really looking forward to the new career.
Man, that sounds like a career path that I would have followed if I had known it existed.
Yeah, it doesn't, but I'm on the forefront.
But what are we like? Like Little Debbie kind of snacks, or are you doing the healthy stuff, orange slices and granola?
A little of everything. Everyone needs a little of everything. Sometimes you just need some chips to crunch on, and sometimes you need a little natural fruit juice in your system to get you through.
So that's what it means.
Expert.
Coaches love to say that they're multiple. That's what you would say as the snack director. You're multiple.
Yeah.
You
can't put me in a snack box. I go a lot of different directions to snacking.
We'll talk to you next week, Fitz. Thanks for the time.
Okay. Good to hear from you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We will take a final break, come back, and wrap up this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk next. Yes, it's time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk an hour earlier than usual as we make way for K-State men's basketball tonight. So it's time for the final word. Spencer Dupuis, what you got?
I saw a graphic on X, the Everything app, X, where you go to do whatever you want to do owned by Elon Musk. The Royals posted their final score. They fell to the Rockies 7-6, I believe.
That's right.
The world is over.
They ran into a juggernaut.
The playoff bout. They're not going to the playoffs this year. The sky's falling. It's over. No, it's just spring training. It's what happens in spring training. Teams lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to in spring training.
Come on, man.
That's it. That's all I had to say.
Lucas Erceg gave up a run.
Oh, no.
Man,
actually, the sky is falling.
Yeah, first outing of the spring for Erceg. Gave up a run on 2 hits and a walk. Chris Stratton, though, clean inning with 2 strikeouts.
Oh, no.
The Chris Stratton agenda advancing to the delight of absolutely no one. Yes, Royals fall 7-6, their first loss of Cactus League play. They are now 4-1-1. Final word for me today. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to be the Chiefs. Righteous Gemstones coming back. That's why I said Keith. Yeah, Righteous Gemstones, season 4. Watched the trailer earlier today. Very excited. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to be able to keep Trey Smith. I really didn't. And I understood it, and I had girded my loins for the probable departure of the all-pro right guard. With the rise in the salary cap, with Brett Veach talking openly about, hey, the window's now open for us to maybe do something with Trey Smith, and we got a better chance of bringing him back. It's the thing now that I think the Chiefs have to do. I didn't think it was going to be feasible. I didn't think it was going to be workable, but if it is under the new salary cap, then it has to be done. If it can be done, it must be done, because the Chiefs cannot downgrade on the offensive line. They can't afford to get worse because they weren't good enough last year, and that was with Trey Smith, and you don't get better letting a player like that walk out the door. K-State Hoops coming up. They take on UCF in Orlando tonight. Pre-game coverage, 5 o'clock. Tip-off at 6. Brendan Dworzynski's got Washburn basketball over on our sister station, the home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9, in about 15 minutes or so. Pre-game coverage. Women at Pitt State at 5:30 in the men's game to follow. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. Good night.